one of the most important things that we're going to be doing today is talking about the Farmer of the Year and announcing the winners. So can I firstly acknowledge the 2017 Farmers of the Year, Mike and Velia O'Hare, and thank them for the great job that they've done over the last 12 months. It's a really important role, speaking on behalf of your peers and being put up on a pedestal to be able to share your story and also share your experiences with others. So can I thank them for the great work that they've done over the last 12 months. And can I welcome our 2018 finalists, Glenn and Julia Andreza, and also Gavin and Karina Moore. Different parts of the state, Will Briggy and also from Glenmore, different types of farming operations. But what you'll see today when we hear a little bit about their story, you'll also see that they're once again fitting finalists and great representatives of the sector. So I wish you all the best. Congratulations for getting through to here today, and there's nothing to worry about. There's only good times ahead for those that take out the prize. Ladies and gentlemen, can I also just acknowledge that today is World Soil Day, and just make recognition of that. I think it's quite apt that we've got a group here today gathered to talk amongst many things that impact on the sector, but also reflect on the important role that soils has to play, particularly for the sector, and maybe something that you may hear us talk a little bit more about in the coming months. This is obviously another opportunity as patron to be able to give an address to close out the year for the farm riders and talk about what we've seen throughout the sector here in New South Wales. And when I was thinking about what to say today, it's also not just closing out this year, it's actually closing out the last 4 years as we head into the election in March. And I've been lucky enough to be the Minister for Primary Industries for that last 4 years. I've had a couple of other roles that haven't been as long, whether it's regional water or water generally, also trade and industry, but also lands as well, which included sectors like forestry. And I thought it might be an opportunity not just to reflect on some of the challenges and some of the performance that we've seen from this year, but also what we've seen over the last 4 years, particularly as we head into an election in March. And I guess a government and I guess a minister and departments and agencies and the minister's office are usually measured on, I think, two different ways. Firstly, how they reform or how they do the things that they said they were going to do, but also then how they respond. Because we can never plan for everything that happens within a sector, within a year, and in our job, we can't really plan what happens within the hour. It's a bit of a revolving door of decisions and things happening in the political sphere at the moment. So I think we need to be judged on both of those things going forward. And I thought what I would do is just touch on the things that we've done in the last 4 years, the things that we said that we would do, and how that has set the sector up, hopefully to progress for the decades and the centuries to come. When we came into government in 2011, there were a lot of things that I guess either posed a threat or a risk to the sector, or needed the government to get out of the way of the sector to free it up to be able to do what it does best. It should always be eyes in, fingers out when it comes to government. You should be able to see what's happening, but not wanting to get your fingers into everything that the private sector is quite capable of handling itself. And when we came into government, we set about looking at some of the things that we could do to try and give some more ownership around property rights back to farmers, and we went and made our changes to the biodiversity laws. We said that we wanted to try and reduce some of the red tape and some of the impacts on the sector, particularly when it comes to pests and weeds, and we then took the 14 different pieces of legislation responsible for biosecurity in the state and rolled it into one, and that will take another journey and a path to try and make that simpler and make it easier for everyone to be able to play their part and share that responsibility for biosecurity. We said that we wanted to reform in areas like forestry, and with the help of my colleague Paul Toole, we've now set that sector along a path where we've set up a roadmap to try and give some certainty to make sure that there is wood supply, but also there is a sustainable forestry sector here in New South Wales, and a sector that we can all be proud of and not, in some cases, being told that it's the wrong thing to be doing. We took on a huge challenge when it came to our commercial fisheries sector, a sector that had no certainty, a sector that had very weak property rights, a sector that there was little investment, and a sector that, because of the government's fingers-in approach previously, they had actually distorted the sector so much in their market that they were struggling to make ends meet. So we had to get on, and we said that we would get on and make some changes to provide a property right and a certainty between the shares that the fishers held and the access to the resource, almost like their holding versus their allocation or their bag limits that we gave them, so that they had some certainty on what they could do going forward. We had other challenges, and we backed in sectors when it came to issues like right to farm or rice vesting. And we also said that we wanted to increase our service delivery, and we set up local land services, and we've made a number of adjustments along the way, extra resources to make sure that that service delivery was there for those when they need it. But we also said that we think the sector has a strong future. And we've been willing to go in and actually demonstrate that, changing legislation so that we can have new cropping opportunities. And I spoke about this, I think, last year at the luncheon with our poppy crop here in New South Wales. Or now that we can have things like hemp for food and also looking at things like medicinal cannabis. But we also then back that up with investment in those that are going to guide us into seeing what the sector looks like into the future. And $50 million this year reinvested into our ag research stations across the state is one of the proudest things that I've been able to achieve in this role, because it was a government of the day that was trying to close down my local ag research station. It was one of the reasons why I got involved in this game. I couldn't understand why they would do that. That's where our rugby ground was, so why would they be attacking our rugby team? Go the Leeton Phantoms. I was pretty good too, just quietly. There's no one here I played with, is there? Okay, we can say that. But we wanted to make sure that we continue to drive this sector forward. And in a moment I'll talk about where I think we're going, because as Trade Minister, I've had not just the luxury of travelling around New South Wales to see what we do here domestically, but I've been into those international markets that are thirsty and hungry for what we are doing, and they just want more. So we've delivered, I think, on some of the challenges that we said that we would take on and the things that we needed to do to set up the sector. But I think it's Harold Macmillan, the former British PM, in response to a journalist's question, was asked, what is most likely to blow governments off course? And his answer was events. My dear boy, events. And that is the biggest challenge that anyone that sits in my role can, I guess, look forward to. Things that you don't see coming, things that you maybe hadn't planned for, and as they pop up, you need to be able to respond. And of course, the biggest event that we've seen, the biggest challenge that we saw this year was no doubt the drought. Even though in our latest economic insights work that we've put out, we now still have a sector in New South Wales that's increased up to $17.4 billion. But as many of you would have seen, the ABARES numbers that came out yesterday with the decline in the winter crop clearly show that the sector has taken a huge hit. And we're not even in summer yet. But as a government, we needed to make sure that we had a strong response, but a response that wasn't just the one that is going to address what's happening on the front page of the paper. And as Trade Minister, every time I speak about what's happening here domestically, they're watching what I say in our competitive markets as well. So balancing a fine line between supporting our farmers, doing what they need, raising their plight through the media or talking about it, but at the same time not giving our competitors, particularly in our international markets, a reason to not walk into their offices and say, hey, did you see what the Trade Minister in New South Wales said? Because they don't distinguish between a New South Wales Trade Minister or the Australian Trade Minister in some of those markets. So we needed to make sure that our response was applicable to everyone, could be adapted to every single farming operation. You know, I travelled around the state and some people would say things like, you know, dying crops don't make a noise and they don't look good on the front page of a paper. These were some of the challenges, and one of the things that I was most proud about this year was not only were we in a financially sound position to be able to respond quickly and decisively, but I had the backing of the Premier and the Deputy Premier and all of the Cabinet when we took the issues forward, and we've seen $1.1 billion allocated to a range of programs to assist the sector throughout the drought at the moment at a state level. And some of those things, like our Farm Innovation Fund, we've had nearly $280 million now of infrastructure that's been rolled out on farms that won't just help now or didn't just set people up to be more resilient for this drought, but they'll help for the next drought and the one after. And James and I were just talking about the level of on-farm storage that we're seeing now as a result of programs like this. Bring it on, there'll be more of that. We want to continue programs like that going forward. The best way is to provide that sort of infrastructure to allow individual farming businesses to apply it on their farm how they best see fit. But we also know that during the drought there was going to be challenges, particularly with farm income and things like local land service rates, things like water rates are going to be challenges, not right now, but even in next year if there's a continuation with the lack of incomes. That's why switching off local land services rates, but not declining with the service. I mean, we're paying that tab now through Treasury, making sure LLS is still there to be able to assist each and every one of the farmers. So we've also decided that we would go further than just the immediate response, but we want to fund the things that are going to make a difference to try and help with the droughts of the future. And that's things like the Doppler radar stations in Western New South Wales. It was really disappointing to get the response back from the federal government when we asked if we could partner with them. We'll pick up some of the tab if they paid some of the maintenance, or we'll go halves. And they weren't interested in providing the Doppler radar stations in Western New South Wales. So you know what, we did it ourselves. Because we've been able to have the support from the Treasurer and the Premier to be able to do that. Other challenges that have come along the way, I think, have symbolised, the way that we've addressed issues as a government. The drought's one of them, but another good example, and it might be strange of me talking about sharks here today, when they said in 2015, congratulations, you're Minister for Primary Industries, I had this vision of all of these photos of my boots out in these paddocks and could wear my kooba because I'm bald and that's good. But to be honest, I've spent just about as much time standing on the beach talking about sharks. And that has been a real challenge, particularly on the North Coast. But I think we've been able to address the issue in a way that has taken not only the community along with us, but we've actually listened to the science. We've looked and we've tried to lead when it comes to the research and innovation in this space. And I think you can apply that approach to a number of things that we've seen. I mean, even in the drought side of things, we've actually listening to what the community wanted rather than it just be government telling communities what they need. And on the shark space, we are now, I think, the leading jurisdiction in the world when it comes to the use of innovation, new technology and research, but more importantly, community engagement and consultation along the same way to make sure that what we were doing wasn't just going to appease one section of the media or isn't just going to get through the House here in Parliament, but was actually accepted and understood by the community that was going to be affected by that. So there are a number of things that I think that I'd like for us to be judged upon as to how we've responded. But I guess as we come into March, we need to talk about, and we will talk more about, what do we do from here? There are a number of differences that I think on how we've been able to respond to things and how we can ensure that the sector and the risks that are posed to the sector, but just as equally the opportunities for the sector, are going to be adequately addressed. Now, I mentioned as Trade Minister, I've just come back from Vietnam and from China. I was at the Chinese International Import Expo and then headed across to Vietnam. And it doesn't matter when I've travelled to Singapore, Malaysia, the United Arab Emirates, Vietnam, China, the same thing keeps coming back. They want to make sure that they have access to our safe, healthy, green food and fibre, but particularly the food side. And that's something that we need to make sure that we do everything we can do as a government to allow the farmers the flexibility and the freedom to be able to get on and do what they do best, but support them with the research, the innovation, the food safety systems, the biosecurity systems, and the things that government can do to underpin and continue to sell that, not just the message, but also the commodity into those international markets. We know that there are also threats that can jump in at any stage for those producers, and whether they are some sort of social media campaign, whether it's on animal welfare or some type of environmental issue, or whether it's a well-meaning customer that's starting to be vocal about some misinformation that they know or may have got about the way a sector is producing what they do, whether it's some of the uncertain trading markets that we have at the moment, or whether it's issues that blow up that can have the whole sector being tarnished. And we saw what happened here in New South Wales when we had the allegations that were aired on the Four Corners program when it came to water. And this was something that I guess we would like to be judged on, both on how we reacted, but also what we said that we would do and how we've done it. It's a bit of a reform and reaction. Hopefully what we see now here in New South Wales is a system that is the envy of the other states. We have made sure that we've increased transparency. We have a new independent regulator on the ground. We have new ways to protect environmental water. And these are all things that the sectors that we spoke to said we want to come along for that journey with, because we don't want to be have the actions of a few wreck the whole sector. And that's something that I think we've had a measured response in consultation with the sector, and we've gone out on 2 or 3 times to change how we're going to implement that based on the feedback that we've had from the sectors. So as we move into March, I guess we've got a particular plan that you'll hear us talking a lot more about over the coming months. We want to increase access, particularly when it comes to property rights, increase access for our farmers, our fishers, our foresters to be able to get on and do what they do best, because that's our default setting. We believe that we back the sector first. Yes, we address all the issues that may be of concern, but we'll listen to the sector and go ahead with that. We want to reduce costs, and we've got not only a good economy here in New South Wales, but we've also got the luxury of the Snowy Hydro transaction that's going to be spent in regional New South Wales, and we know that that's going to include more water infrastructure. It's also going to include more connectivity for the regions to hopefully get on and do what we all do best. We're going to expand that innovation. Now, whether it's through our agri-tech precinct that we have in Orange, whether it's that continued investment in our research stations, we want to lead when it comes to innovation in the sector. DPI is in the top 1% of agricultural research institutes in the world. We want them not just to stay there, but to lead that top 1%. And there are challenges that DPI are looking at the moment. You know, how do we get to an industry and a sector that has zero waste? How do we make sure that we're more efficient with less? These are the things that we're looking at, while at the same time continuing to manage risks. And whether they're risks from things like climate change, whether it's from biosecurity risks, whether it's from pests and weeds, these are the things that we'll continue to invest in and get on and manage as we go forward. Now, hopefully when we get to March, and at the end of the day, this is probably my last opportunity to speak to some of you before March, the sector will remember the default setting and the fact that we said that we did what we would do, but more importantly, when there were challenges, we rose to those challenges and we got in and backed our farming sectors here in New South Wales. Now, I hope and I believe that we've left the sector when we get to March 23. Hopefully we get to go again, because we've still got more to do. But we've left it in a better way than we found it back in 2011 and even back in 2015. I'm not confident that the alternatives that are being offered up warrant a change, because I think that's all elections are. We need change or don't risk it. That's the only questions that are asked at election time. And when it comes to the primary industry sector, the Deputy Premier, the alternative Deputy Premier, will be the Environment Minister. That's the spokesperson that we have at the moment, who has already committed to ripping up some of the things that we've done. The water spokesperson from the opposition is in Cogra, who wants to get rid of the Menindee Lakes program or the project for water saving Menindee Lakes, which has been agreed to by all the basin states, and was also quite happy to saddle up with the South Australians and use the Murray-Darling Basin Plan as a political tool going forward. That will mean that most of those southern connected systems will have to have more productive water taken out of them if we don't do that Menindee Lakes water saving project. A project that reconfigures the lakes, it doesn't decommission them. It just means that we become more efficient and we don't lose a lot of water through evaporation. So ladies and gentlemen, I know that that's a little bit of the thing that's on the nose at the moment, which is politics, but it's too important for our sectors not to have someone that by default backs in the sector. Either where we do what we said we would do and the things that we committed to were usually off the back of consultation with the sector, but more importantly, responded in a way that was sympathetic and addressed the needs of the sector. So that ends the politics side. You'll hear more from me heading into March 23 as we go forward, because we've got, I think, some exciting things coming ahead. Lastly, Karen, and to all the team and to everyone here, it's been an absolute honour to be the patron once again. It's a fantastic turnout. Merry Christmas to everyone. Take the time to have a breath, close out 2018. We know that 2019 hopefully will be a better year when it comes to seasonal conditions. But whatever it throws, we're all ready to do it. And if we do it together, then we can't go wrong. So Merry Christmas, everyone, and thank you.